right, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And I want to start with a special shout out to all our teachers, both live and on YouTube. It has been a thrilling 2021, I guess, beginning of the school year. We have done over 200 programs in the last 3 months, so it's been a crazy time, and I really appreciate all of you joining us as we continue to showcase and celebrate such amazing people and places from around the globe. Now today, we continue our Fisheries and Oceans epic series with another amazing scientist. And I must admit, professional detachment out the window, this is a really cool topic. Like, this is something that I'm personally really excited about. I hope you guys are as well, because to me, science and exploration are so romantic and exciting. And the fact that you get to travel around the world to go to exciting places, connecting with just the most amazing, smartest people around the globe is just the essence of science. And no one embodies that more than our speaker today. So Shannon McPhee is joining us from her home. She's going to tell us a little bit today about her work studying belugas in the Beaufort Sea. And if that doesn't sound like an awesome conversation starter as a job description, I don't know what does. We're going to learn about her work to study one of the most enigmatic and amazing animals in one of the most remote and amazing places on this planet. Again, collaborating with Indigenous communities, other scientists around the world, and so much more. I hope you guys are ready. Let's buckle up and do this thing. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. Unmute your mic and come on in, and we're good to go. Take us away. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I'm so excited to be here with you. So yeah, I'm going to share a little bit about the work that I do in the Arctic. I'm a biologist with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And so what that means is I study animals and try to learn about the ecosystem that they live in. And in this case, my focal species that I look at is beluga whales. So just a bit about where I work. Right now I'm in my basement, but I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which you see is the star on the bottom of this map. And I work way up in the Beaufort Sea near the top left. So that's on the far northeast corner or northwest corner of Canada, right near Alaska. And it takes a bit of time to get there. It takes me about 2 days to fly up to that study area. So I spend a lot of time on planes and in airports. And I fly to Inuvik, which is the regional center. And then from Inuvik, I will, travel to my field site, which might be on the Arctic coast. It might be some communities or out on an island in the ocean. And so I'll use different ways to travel to those field sites too, by helicopter or plane or small boat. That's a little bit about how I get around. I wanted to share a little bit about the Arctic environment with you. People think of the Arctic as being cold and remote, with sea ice and blowing snow, and it can be. And there's, you'd be familiar with marine mammals that are adapted to life on sea ice, like seals and polar bears, and I'm lucky to see those animals in the work that I do. And there are times of year where it is 24 hours of darkness. Like right now, up in the area where I work, there's about 1 hour of dusk, almost like twilight. When we can travel by ice roads and skidoo to get around. When I'm up doing work in the winter, I actually really love that time of year because we do a lot of community meetings. We meet with people who live in the Arctic in coastal communities, and they'll share with us observations that they're seeing from the marine environment, and we will work together to design science programs. But the Arctic is also really a place with abundant wildlife, and can be really, really beautiful in both winter and summer. These are just some pictures I wanted to share of life in summer in the Western Arctic. There is an all-weather road that goes to Canada's third ocean, the Arctic Ocean. So you can drive right to the ocean and see lots of amazing animals and plant life when we're in the area. So I really wanted to share with you today that the Arctic, again, we talk about it being remote, but it is, people live there, and it is home to the Inuit. So this map is showing Inuvialuit, which is the Inuit homeland in Canada. And there's different areas. So you would know Nunavut. Nunavik is in northern Quebec, Nunatsiavut in Labrador. And I work, again, up in the northwest corner with the Inuvialuit. And the Inuvialuit, many people maintain their traditional cultural lifestyle to live off the land. So they spend a lot of time out on the land, hunting and fishing, harvesting marine mammals, and caribou and other animals, and berry picking and maintaining that traditional lifestyle. And beluga whales are one of the most important species to Inuvialuit. They're really important for food and culture. So I wanted to highlight to you guys that beluga whales, maybe you know this, undertake, most populations undertake a really amazing migration, in the top 5, animal migrations on the planet in terms of distance. I work on eastern Beaufort Sea beluga whales. So they overwinter in the Bering Sea between Alaska and Russia, over on the left of the screen. And they migrate through the sea ice, through leads, so breaks in the sea ice in springtime, where they travel over the Alaskan coast to Canada, to the Canadian Beaufort Sea. And there they'll form a large summering aggregation. And they do this in the Mackenzie estuary. So an estuary is a place where a large river drains into the ocean. And when that river drains, there'll be lots of warm and fresh water, and it can bring a lot of sediment as well. So I'm just showing you here a picture of the Mackenzie River. It's one of the world's largest rivers. It's part of Canada's largest river system. A massive river dumping so much sediment and warm water into the ocean. And the beluga whales love that. It's a critical part of their life to undertake this huge migration and spend time in the estuary. This is an old photo from the 1970s, but I love it because this is what it looks like when you look at belugas from an airplane. They look like grains of rice, and there are so many of them in the Mackenzie estuary in July. So on the photo on the right, with those sort of neon purple lines, what I'm showing is a marine protected area in the Mackenzie estuary designed to protect the critical habitat for these beluga whales. So just a little bit more about belugas. This is a photo from an aquarium because it's really hard to get a nice photo of the whales underwater in the wild. But they have special adaptations to life in the Arctic. So I mean, if you look at it, you can imagine their white color helps them hide from predators in sea ice. They're a type of dolphin, like dolphins or killer whales, but they don't have that big dorsal fin, which helps reduce heat loss. To not have that fin, and again, it helps them travel through ice. They've got really thick blubber. They can dive to tremendous depths in the ocean, down to the seafloor. They can dive to 1,300 meters depth. So that's like 130 soccer fields down in the ocean. And they, because it's dark, they can use echolocation to find their prey. So it's like a sonar where they send out a signal and receive a signal back to tell them where their prey is. They are very social creatures. So I think, you being young people would be very familiar with the concept of climate change, something that's going to be really important for your life going forward. We hear about it a lot, and we hear about how climate change is really happening rapidly in the Arctic compared to other areas. And so sea ice is melting earlier and forming later in the season, and there's changes in the thickness of that sea ice. And this leads to some other challenges for marine life and the marine ecosystem. So if there's less sea ice, what we're seeing is increased vessel traffic in the Arctic, which can bring different stressors to the area. And less sea ice can also lead to changes in the prey for different animals like beluga. And we're seeing killer whales starting to come into the Arctic much more frequently. 100 years ago, it was extremely rare to see, a killer whale in the Arctic, and now they're coming every year, and they are a main predator of belugas. So because belugas will find their prey using echolocation, and they really communicate, they're really noisy animals. They're known as canaries of the sea for all the different sounds they make. Noise pollution could be a real problem for them because it could mask their ability to find prey or to communicate. So one of the things that we do is to monitor the soundscape of the ocean. There's the landscape, and we're measuring the soundscape. And we're trying to figure out what the background sound levels are right now, and then measure that every year so that we can detect future change and see how that might impact the whales. So I'm just playing you a clip of sounds made by many whales aggregating in that Mackenzie estuary. They'll make different whistles and clicks. And they can be really quite noisy and really fun to listen to. You can hear them through the water sometimes, and they'll grunt. So I wanted to talk about, switch gears and talk about something else that we do. I mentioned that people do harvest marine life as part of their culture and lifestyle, and to access food in the north. And so as part of my work is to work closely with Inuvialuit, who harvest beluga whales, to sample those whales and to learn about if the population is healthy, and also to have the whales tell us something about the ecosystem health, almost like they're out sampling their environment and then we sample the whales. So just really quick, if I'm doing field work in the summer, this is what my camp might look like in the Western Arctic. This is Hendrickson Island. It's a long-term monitoring site. People have been monitoring the whales here since the 1970s. So setting up a camp is a big part of what I do. There's a lot of logistics to get all the gear and people to the field site. But we end up camping on a beach for 3 weeks, which is pretty amazing. And, whales swim by. So this might be, the tent that we're living in, the shelter that we've set up. That's sort of a hurricane shelter because it can get really, really windy. And, we set up a little lab in a tent to keep the mosquitoes out. So this could be, a field site. This is the field site that I work at. And like I said, we take different samples from the belugas, different parts of their body tissues, to learn about health of the whales and health of the ocean. So these are just some examples of the different kinds of information that we can get. So we can look at the diet of belugas and see, how that changes from year to year, and that can say something about the environment that the prey are living in and about the ocean. I know microplastics is a big topic of interest, and so we can look for microplastics in the belugas. A couple of examples of things I never thought I would do in my job: weighing a full-size whale on a tripod. That was really interesting. And actually taking a look at the whole digestive tract, so the intestines and all the stomach and the inside of the whale, and then filtering through that to see if we could find microplastic particles. So that's, this kind of work takes a team of people really working together, and it's a lot of fun. We work really closely with the hunters, like I said, and they have a lot of knowledge about where belugas move, how they behave, and what their body condition is to say if they're in good health. So I feel really lucky to be learning all the time from people who are out on the land, seeing much more than I do. They're out for their life, long term, and throughout the summer and the harvesting season. So the last thing I did want to talk to you guys about is a way that scientists can monitor or learn about the movement of animals that are really hard to see. So beluga whales, sometimes we see them near shore, but they have a huge range, like I showed on their migration map. So they're far offshore and they dive underwater and you can't see them. And so we're interested in learning about where they move to know what habitats are important for them. And one of the ways we can do that is to attach a tag that sends a signal to a satellite when the whale surfaces. And then that satellite will send the data back down to the ground, and we'll pick it up on our computers, and we can use that to study where they're moving. So I wanted to share what, how do we put the tag on a whale that's out in the ocean? This was one of the more unusual and pretty exciting things I've been able to do in my job. We actually have to capture that wild animal and put the tag on. And so again, we work with Inuvialuit beluga harvesters who really know the behavior of the animals and where to find them. And we will identify a whale. They'll select a whale of an appropriate size and herd that animal gently close to shore. And when it gets close to shore, we have a boat with a net in the back. So I don't know if you can see this wooden box is a net box, and it'll make a really fast circle around the whale and capture it in the net. And we have soft-sided boats of zodiacs that are inflatable that will come up as quick as we can and reach the whale and make sure that it comes to the surface to breathe. And we'll actually handle the whale carefully and tow it to shore where we can work on it. And so my job was to plan this program and also to be in the Zodiac handling the whale. This is what it looks like when we're putting the tag on. Again, it takes a lot of people to do this kind of work, a lot of boats. And we work with a veterinarian who will collect blood and other samples from this whale to make sure that it's healthy when we're working on it. So the photos here I'm showing that we'll take different measurements to know what size of whale we're working with. I'm taking some notes, and then on the bottom I'm actually placing the tag on the whale. And this whole process takes about 20 minutes, and then we release it into the wild. I'll just play a very short clip of us releasing one of these whales with the tag on.
Yep.
And I'm playing this for you because it's you can hear people cheering in the background. It's such an enormous effort to plan the camp and plan the program and put the tag on, and it's so exciting when we are able to let the whale go back into the wild. And so what do we get from that? Like you said, we're looking at how it moves. I'll play a little video for you. So where these dots are coming from, that's our camp on Hendrickson Island. And this is showing the movement of the whales. With the data that we get back from those satellites is showing us where they move. And this might look to you like a video game from the 1980s, but again, having handled that wild animal and trying to learn about where it lives and what habitats are important, it's so amazing every time I watch this video. These are real wild animals traveling in their natural environment. And so with the movement map like this, with the tracks, we can learn about seasonal travel routes. We can learn about migration corridors and how the timing of migration or the route might change with changes in sea ice over time. We can look at high use areas, so areas that the whales return to every year or that many whales go to within the same year. And if we've tagged over a number of years, we can compare these movement patterns across time as well. So it's a very powerful way to learn about important habitats for animals. And the tags that we use, they don't just give us the location of the whales, but they also tell us something about the way they're diving. So here's a map, again, showing the tracks of all of the whales that we tagged in one season and where they moved. But I'm highlighting here one area and looking at the dive profile. So that's the shape of the dive over time, the depth and time of how the whales are diving. And so I wanted to show you here that in this area, you can see a lot of the tracks go up here. This is Viscount Melville Sound. The whales are diving right to the seafloor, and they're diving repeatedly. They just keep hitting the bottom of the ocean continually, and their movement is in a zigzag pattern. There's a lot of action in this photo of the movement of the whales. And we know the shape of their dive. When they dive to the bottom, it's a U shape. So they're diving down and cruising along the bottom. And so we think that they're feeding. We think that this is a really important area for feeding. And in fact, they return to this area every summer that they've been tagged. And so just for comparison, there's other areas where we believe they're traveling. So this next example, basically this whale, it dives to the bottom once in a while, but mostly it's cruising along the surface. It's staying near the surface, and it covers 124 kilometers in one day. Whereas the whale that was up in Viscount Melville Sound feeding is it's kind of staying in the same area. It's not really covering any ground. So this is an example of how we can learn about how the whales are using their habitat, not just that they're in a place, but what are they doing in that area and why is it important for them? And yeah, I wanted to highlight that we can also learn just about their dive behavior. So I mentioned some of our belugas dive down to 1,300 meters depth, and they can hold their breath for more than 20 minutes. So that's a very long time. A few years ago, also as part of my job, I was lucky enough to work on a ship. So I've worked on coastal camps, and I also got to work on a fishing vessel. And we did a lot of different sampling of the ecosystem of the ocean, fish, invertebrates like shrimp from that ship. And what we were doing basically was a survey to find out what types of fish live in different habitats. And we learned that there are different communities or groups of fishes that live at different depths and are associated with different types of water, so colder and warmer or saltier water. And we can use that to kind of predict, to guess, a very educated guess of where we might find different types of fish. And so this is basically mapping potential prey items for beluga whales. And remember, we have an idea of what they're eating because we can look at their body tissues as well from the harvested whales. So we know what they're eating, and we know where their prey can be found. And we know where they're moving. So if we can put that information together, showing the movement of the whales, where different prey types are available to them in their summer range, so the summer area that they're using for the habitat, and combine that with information on, say, ocean conditions like temperature and salinity, and the depth of the ocean in different areas, and sea ice extent. So is there sea ice or is it open water? And we can put all of that together and put that into a model. This is where a lot of the science part comes in, and run some computer modeling and try and predict what habitat might be available to belugas in future. Say if there's more or less sea ice or other changes in the ecosystem, we can predict what habitats might be available. And so we can identify habitat that is suitable for whales. We can use this to predict how an ecosystem might respond to different stressors, like the shipping that we talked about, changes in sea ice. And we can use this information to identify areas that are important for marine conservation. So we have the marine protected area that I mentioned at the beginning, but that's just one place that belugas are using. And so they need other important habitats that they need for their life to be available to them, and they need those areas to be connected so that they can move between them. So that's another example of some of the work that we've been doing. So I've shared with you some examples of monitoring the underwater sound, some examples of working with harvesters to sample animals and learn about the ecosystem from the beluga, and different ways that we can track whales, learn about their behavior, and then use that to identify places that could be protected to help conserve beluga whales for the future. So I'll stop there, and I really want to thank everybody for listening, and I'm really excited to chat with you, so thanks.
Shannon, that was so much fun. What, again, amazing work. Who gets to do most of these things or any of these things? Holy, what a fun, awesome career. If you want to do a good screen share, feel free to do that. What I'm going to do now is pull up our Kahoot. I'll mention again, we've got a whole whack of classes joining in on YouTube. Great. If you guys want to share questions in the chat bar, some of you already are. That's awesome. For our live classes too, I know a few of you joined just after we got underway. We are doing a Kahoot today. So before we dive into that Q&A, if you want to test your understanding, have a little fun. You don't win anything if you win the Kahoot, but you do win Shannon and I's everlasting respect, which is worth more than any prize you could ever win. So I'm going to bring up that Kahoot on my screen right now. I'll give you guys a second to type in that game pin 889-6312, and then we will play along together. If you don't have Kahoot, if you don't want to play along in that way, that's totally fine too. You can just play along in your class and answer the questions. We've got a few for you guys today. Keep pouring in. The faster you answer, the more points you get. Just keep that in mind. And again, if you have devices at your desk, fantastic. Shannon, what we can do too, if you want to unmute your mic again, when there's like a few seconds left for every question, you can like give hints if you'd like, okay? Because I might know, I think you have a better chance than I do. So many of you pouring in. All right, we're going to get underway. If more of you join, all the better. But here we go. Our research and conservation program. 3, 2, 1. We're going to begin with our first question, which is, all right, don't listen to me. Watch the Kahoot if you're on YouTube. It's a little delayed. What are ways beluga whales are adapted to life in the Arctic environment? All right, they lack a dorsal fin that allows them to move under sea ice. They've got a thick layer of blubber for insulation. echolocation to detect prey in the dark underwater, or all of the above? I don't know. I think this is fairly straightforward. We'll see how it goes. 38 of you. Holy, so many of you. This is great. And our beluga is saying hello out of the water. Okay, so Shannon, look, they killed it. Most of them got it. Of the ones who just picked one, blubber, yes. Blubber is a really good insulation. Without that blubber, they're probably not living there. Blue ibex, number one so far. Okay, question 2. Noise pollution is a concern for beluga whales because it can mask vocalizations, sound they make to communicate underwater. It can disrupt feeding by interfering with their ability to locate prey. It can cause hearing damage or, all of the above again. I wonder, Shannon, we're just, at least we're highlighting all this great stuff. 46 of you answered, great. How many, all of the above again. Now, again, most of you to pick one, masking vocalizations is a really good thing. It's a really important aspect to noise pollution, but all of the above is our correct answer. Blue ibex, stage of the lead. Way to go, blue ibex. 3 of 4, true or false? By studying whale health, we can learn about the health of the ocean. Okay, you've got 20 seconds for this, and I really hope you all get this right. It is the point of the talk today. If you get the wrong answer here, I don't know what talk you were tuning in on. I know Ms. Nagel's class on YouTube is watching like 2 talks, half in French and half in English at the same time, which is very meta of them. Shannon, you got 3 seconds left, 48 answers. Nicely done. All right, and our answer is, of course, true. One contrarian went against us today, but true. We study whales, we learn more about the oceans, and we can help protect them. Blue ibex has been like wire to wire the leader. That's never happened in our history. Useful tool to understand marine mammal movement because belugas are always close to shore and easy for people to see. I must admit, having seen belugas from shore in life, that can be true, but I don't know if it's our answer today. Belugas spend much of their time offshore and underwater. Tags can only tell us about movement, but not dive behavior. Or option 4 doesn't exist. We were rebels. We did a 3-part thing. Most of you got that right. 28 of you. Way to go, man. You guys are smart. Here we go. Shannon, our leaderboard, bronze medalist, flying egret. Not a real name. Totally not. If we do have a flying egret in a class, I sincerely apologize. And number 1, did they go to wire, blue ibex? Blue ibex wins the day. Way to go. All right, if you are blue ibex on YouTube or in a classroom, let us know. It's always a lot of fun, but thank you guys for playing along. And now we're going to dive in with these awesome questions. So while our live classes percolate a little bit, I'm going to take one quick one from YouTube. Miss Nagel's class has been asking a whole bunch. They're grade 7s in the Guelph area, 7, 8s. Can other whales hear the sounds that beluga whales make? From Nikita. I love this question. We get this every time.
Yeah, great question. They can, but different whales hear at different sound frequencies, so they need to, have an overlapping ability basically to hear the sound. But they can, and we can hear them too. When we're listening on our hydrophones, we can hear. Sometimes we hear bearded seals. We can hear bowheads. Bowheads actually sing, which is quite beautiful, and they'll often travel together with belugas. I think because bowheads can break through thicker sea ice, and the belugas will follow them. So yeah, they can hear each other as long as their sound frequency is overlapping.
It's so cool. If classes want to learn more about acoustics too, Bill Halliday of the Wildlife Conservation Society literally does marine acoustics, all these animals. If you want to hear more of those great things, check out our YouTube page for that. Unawani Public School, let's head to you guys now. Our folks joining us in Oakville today, great. You guys are like right up the road from me. Unmute your mic. There we go. Come on in. Hey guys.
Hi. So I have a question from Manib, and he wanted to know when you decided to choose this as a career path, and how did you know?
Whew, that's actually a hard question, but a good one. I should say that I think a lot of people who work on whales grew up, loving whales and wanting to work on them. But I had never seen the ocean until I was, I think, a late teenager. I grew up near Toronto, like a lot of you, and I saw Lake Ontario, and I was interested in working at Lake Ontario because I saw a lot of the pollution in the lake, and I knew about zebra mussels when I was growing up. That's how I became interested in working on the environment. And so I started by working on freshwater lakes in Ontario. And I worked on zooplankton, which is like food for fish, bugs that are swimming in the water, food for fish. And I just started becoming interested in working on a species that, that people were eating, like fish. And I became interested in working in the Arctic because I had some friends who were working up north, and it just seemed really exciting. So I applied, and I started doing some work around Hudson Bay and loved it. And that's when I, started applying for jobs working in the Arctic. So I would say, you don't always know what you want to do. You can follow a different path, and you don't know where you'll end up. But if you're in science, then you have lots of options.
So many doors available to you, which is really nice. And it's really interesting. A lot of the people on this broadcast started with friends, whether it's mentors or people that are a few years ahead of them or colleagues, they drag them into it. And that's the nice thing about science, is that when you enter into this, if you're on a career path, you get the opportunity to try out a lot of different fields and ideas and find what really sticks. And so I'm really glad that was the case for you. Very cool, Shannon. A quick note for all our live classes. I will come to you. You don't need to share questions in the chat. That's the fun of those programs. Mr. Boccia's class, I'm going to come to you guys next. And a quick shout out to Anna, Sarah on YouTube, and Mr. Anderson's class, who has joined us for, I think, 29 broadcasts this year. So welcome in to all of you guys. Mr. Boccia, come on in. Hey, guys.
We have a question from Bridget.
What is the biggest group of belugas you've seen?
The biggest group of belugas ever, Shannon. What's the one you've ever seen?
That I've ever seen.
Wow.
I've only ever seen maybe 20 animals together when I've been flying in a helicopter to go work on a weather station at the coast. I think in the area where I work, they're usually traveling in groups of about 7. But I showed you that picture of a whole pile of whales gathered together like the grains of rice. And so we know that there are thousands of whales that group together in the area where I work. I just haven't seen them all together like that at one time.
You'll have to invite them for one of those like Christmas card pictures next time you go up. Very, very cool. Great question. Thanks, Bridget. I'm going to head to Ms. Marions' class. They're joining us at the awesomely named Lakeshore Discovery Public School. So welcome in, guys. Keep your mic unmuted and you're good to go. Hey.
Hello. I would like to ask, how long have you been studying beluga whales for?
Yeah, good question. So I think I only started working on belugas in about 2016. So how many years is that? 7, coming up on 7 years, not that 6 years, not that long. And I've been working in the Arctic for about 10.
Yeah.
So I worked on lakes in Ontario for 10 years before I came to the Arctic. And I actually sometimes think it helps me in my job that I don't have a long background in working in the Arctic or on belugas, because there's a lot of things that I don't know. So I'm always asking questions and trying to learn more.
Yeah, very cool. Great question. Thanks, guys. All right, Miss Fine's class in Stony Creek, our folks next. I know you guys joined after we began. We're going to hope all your mics work. Miss Fine, if you want to unmute your mic, I will come to you. You should be good to go to ask a question. And there we go. Let's see. Hey.
Hi there.
Hi.
So my class was really interested in the picture of the whale that you were weighing on the tripod. And so that got us asking, how big can beluga whales get? How big was that whale, and how big can beluga whales get?
Nice.
Yeah, good question. It kind of depends where you are. So there's lots of different, there's a handful of different populations of belugas that live in different parts of the Arctic. The ones that I work on, Eastern Beaufort Sea, are some of the biggest. They're some of the longest. And we think that's maybe because they undertake this really long distance migration, and it helps them to swim far to be really big. So the ones that I see are on the smaller side, 3.5 meters, but up to 6.5 meters. The one that I was weighing was probably about 5 meters, and I remember it weighed 1,100 kilograms.
Wow.
So that's like a tiny car.
Yeah. Trying to think, so we've done this before for leatherback turtles, but I think for our smaller classes today, it's comparable to like all the kids in the class together in one whale. So if you have like 20 kids in the class, 50, 60 pounds, like we're getting there. So
Wow.
Yeah, very, very cool. Stony Creek, let's head to you guys. Come on in, share a question with us. Hi. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, hello. Do you have any questions for Shannon?
Yeah, Alex wanted to know if it's scary to release the beluga whales.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good question. Yes, yes and no. So releasing it, you feel relief. You're happy that you're finished working on the whale because you're worried about it. It's a live animal that you're holding. So you feel relief. You're excited, like it worked, and let's see what we learn from it. But it is a little scary because when you release it, the tail it uses its fluke and its tail stalk to really swim away, and that is really powerful. And you really have to make sure that you step away from the business end of the whale when it's swimming away. So it can be a little scary.
It's a good lesson in life in general. Always stay away from the business end of a whale. That's our one takeaway. We could call the program that next time. I'm going to take questions from our 2 YouTube classes that are sharing so much. And again, way to go. I love the enthusiasm for everyone there as well. And then Shannon, we'll go back to our live groups. We are whipping through these. This is great. Let's see, Arden in Mr. Anderson's class. So it's Stony Plain group. So fantastic to have you guys. Can you tell us a little bit more about how beluga whales stay warm in the Arctic waters?
Yeah, good question. So like I said, they have a really thick layer of blubber, like 3 to 6 inches, depending on the time of year and how much they've been feeding. And that blubber really provides a layer of insulation. If you think, in your house, you have foam that's insulating the walls. It's like that, the same kind of idea of insulating the beluga. And then I also talked about how they don't have a dorsal fin like you see on killer whales or dolphins. So that dorsal fin has a really large surface area for a smaller volume. So there could be a lot of heat loss. And so belugas don't have that. And that's one really important way that they stay warm when they're in that cold water.
So I put on my thick winter coat just to illustrate this for our kids that are in the classes today. Think about how much warmer you are when you have that coat because you have that layer between you. And I know a lot of you, when you walk outside, it's a really windy day where I am, your ears get really cold. Well, if you put a hat over that, then you don't have that problem anymore. Same idea with the blubber, same idea with not having that dorsal fin. It really makes it that much easier to stay warm when you don't have those big surface areas to get you nice and cold. So yeah. I'm going to take this off. Boiling hot. Go ahead, Shannon.
Can I add to that too? I guess the other thing I should say is, because we always talk about this as scientists in my group, we say that fat is the currency of the Arctic. It's like the money of the Arctic. And the whales they're fat. They have a lot of fat. They have a lot of lipids in them, and the prey that they eat is really lipid or fat rich. So they get a lot of energy that they can also burn to stay warm as well.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you, guys. This has been so much fun. Okay, we're going to do a rapid fire round. All our classes, get ready with those questions. Unanwani, come on in, unmute your mic, and you're good to go to kick us off. Round 2. Hi, guys.
Hi there. We were also wondering, you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that the killer whales were starting to move further north. And we were wondering why you think that is.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I don't work on that myself, but my colleagues do, and I've asked them, is it just that they're, expanding their range and moving farther, or, and they do think it's related to when there's less ice, killer whales can swim in open water. When there's the sea ice, it stops them from coming into an area because they have that big dorsal fin, and they can't travel under ice with that big fin. They also have a much thinner layer of blubber than belugas, so they don't stay warm. So they'll come into an area and do a lot of feeding and leave. But we think it is part of climate change that we're seeing this pattern.
I'm a tremendous killer whale nerd myself, and so I must say it's going to be really interesting to see how that impacts Arctic ecosystems. I mean, this is literally the apex predator of the oceans, the only animal ever that can eat both blue whales that has been recorded. It's the largest animal ever. Killer whales can attack them, and great white sharks, which is really kind of metal if you think about it. So it remains to be seen the impact of that, but it's a question we always get in these Arctic programs. So thanks, guys. Mr. Boggia's class, coming to you next.
Hi, Patricia, you have a question.
I have 2 questions, actually.
Go for it.
Why do beluga whales use high-pitched sounds?
And then what's your second one?
And my second one is, what type of beluga whale can make the most sound?
Ooh, okay. So Why the high-pitched sounds? And then is there different types of beluga whales that make different kinds of sounds? Or is it just the one?
Whew, these are hard questions for me. Why the high-pitched sounds? I mean, they travel well underwater, and it's within the frequency that they're hearing. So it's related to the way that their ears are built, and that they can hear the sound, and that they can send a signal through the water. Why? What was the second question?
The second part is: are there different kinds of beluga whales that make different sounds, or is it all one species universally?
This is really interesting. So in general, they make the same kinds of sounds. We call them click trains or whistles. There's grunts. There's a contact calls, a type of call pattern between mothers and calves. So we believe that all belugas can make those kinds of sounds, but scientists are starting to understand that they probably have different language.
Yeah. So
same kind of sound, but different language, different patterns, and maybe it's a different. That's one way of keeping the populations separate, is that they've got different languages.
So, I mean, as humans, we recognize this. We think about people in other parts of the world that maybe speak something different than English, what we're speaking in today's program. But other whale species and other primates have these dialects that are slightly different from one another, which is just fantastic. I mean, it's the coolest science in the world. And we could go all day on that, but I don't want to because we only have a few more minutes. So, Miss Marion's class, come on back in. And again, I really encourage all our classes to look up vocalizations of these marine mammals. Such cool research, such cool stuff. But for now, Miss Marion, come on back in.
I have a question. My question is, what equipment do you use other than what you've displayed? What does it do, and where do you get it from?
Okay, I heard, what equipment do I use?
And where do you get it from, and how do you use it? Like the stuff that wasn't in your broadcast, is there anything else that really jumps out, and like how is it all working, and where are you?
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, we do so many different things. So one of the things we do is we set up a weather station. We've got a network of weather stations along the coast where we're looking at things like wind speed and direction, and how those local weather patterns influence when and why belugas move in and out of an area, for example. So that's one example. I showed the tagging. Well, sometimes the tags will come off. We have some tags that we can program to come off, and we want to go find them. So we'll use different instruments to go. They make pings, and we'll go look for them, on the coast. Where do we get it? Oh my goodness, there's different companies that make different kinds of scientific products that we can purchase. So that's talking to other scientists. Sometimes meeting a company. I've traveled to the place where the tags are made to meet with the company there. So it's hard for me to answer because there's variety, but very cool question about logistics.
Yeah, we haven't had one like that in quite some time. That was great. Guys, time flies. We're going to take two more questions, Miss Stein's class, and then Stony Creek, we're going to wrap up with you guys. So Miss Stein's grade 4ers, come on back in.
Hi there. So we know that beluga whale populations are threatened around the world. And we're wondering, what can we do here that would make sure that the beluga whale population doesn't become endangered or extinct?
My favorite kind of question. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, such a good question. Well, the first thing is to remember that everything we do here affects what happens in the Arctic. In terms of contaminants or climate change. We've seen the government switch away from single-use plastics. If you can make choices to not use plastics in your life, if you can make choices to reduce carbon emissions, like walking or taking public transit, learning more about, the conservation of different species is really important. I work for the government, and so right now a focus of our current government is on marine conservation, and so there's a focus on that, and so there's more work happening in that area as well because of it. So lots of ways that you live your regular life become really important in the bigger picture.
Yeah, I love the idea. And, no matter what species people are talking about, ecosystem, deserts, jungles, what have you, whales, we had conservation optimism on earlier, cheetahs later today, the essence seems to be don't waste as a general concept, whether that's emissions, materials, food, that way of living your life will really make a huge positive impact when it comes to saving species. And so I'm really glad we got that question in today, guys. All right, one more to wrap up, and then we'll do our big thanks and goodbye, everybody. So Stony Creek, come on in. Hey, guys.
Hey, Bill, come ask your question.
Hi.
Are they warm-blooded or cold-blooded?
Ooh.
Oh, great question. I should have said, so they're mammals. Belugas are marine mammals. So they're warm-blooded. It means they regulate their own body temperature. And they produce milk, they give birth to live young, all of those other things that mammals do, belugas also do.
Yeah. Great, guys. This has been so much fun. You guys have kept Shannon on the ball this whole time. This has been a tough Q&A period, so way to go to all of you guys. I do encourage you, check out our other programs in our DFO series over the last few weeks. Some really, really spectacular programs on all manner of wildlife. And again, if you're keen on marine mammals, we have done so much on that. So students on YouTube, inspired to be marine biologists of all ages, all our live classes, I really appreciate all of you. And Shannon, what we do to end every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our teacher friends and say a big thank you and goodbye. So Udinawani, Mr. Baccia, Miss Marion, Miss Thind, and Stony Creek, thank you guys so much for joining. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.